Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Q3 Roundtable discussion on data management. My name is Deven Dhulia. I represent data strategy professionals and will be moderating today's discussion. So, data management, acquired by Dharma International, covers a wide set of knowledge areas in the data space, ranging from data governance to data management to data modeling, data architecture, big data warehousing, data security, data storage. But for today's roundtable, we have an exciting group of experts who will participate in a lively interactive Q&A session on three relevant topics: data quality management, master data management, and metadata management. And so before I ask them to introduce themselves, here's a quick recap on the format of this roundtable. I will ask the panelists several questions on the above topics from a predetermined set, and they will offer their nuanced insights based on their areas of expertise. Of course, all panelists are welcome to respond to any question, regardless of their knowledge areas. And so without further ado, let me start with the introductions. Vice, would you like to get started, please?
Absolutely. Many thanks, Evan. Many thanks really for having me here. It's a pleasure. We had previous chats and we had chance to meet each other now as well. So basically, I'm an engineer. I worked many years in industry, I would say 20 years plus now. Then in a certain point of time, I made a transition towards industrial modeling. From industrial modeling, I entered into a domain of data science, close to life science. No? And then I made another step towards data analytics, business analytics, and BI in general. And now I would say that my work actually is interception between master data management, the governance, and business transformation. So I was working in the context of where the industries have unstructured data environment and try to put it in some kind of business aligned environment. So I've been working in different kind of enterprise large scale projects like SAP implementation, master and reference data harmonization, rolling out data governance programs, setting up strategy, standards, guidelines, and so on and so forth. No? So I was always trying to bridge this from data strategy towards implementing this really in a business context. No? So I'm happy really to be here because all these three topics, data quality, master data management, and metadata management are not only technical questions, they're deeply tied also with the company culture and change management. So many thanks for having me here.
You're welcome, and we're very happy to have you here. Stijn, would you like to go next?
Of course. So you can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Stan from Calibra, one of the co-founders of the company and also trained originally as an engineer. But in the meantime, we've been running Calibra company for the last 17 years,
Yeah.
where we are complete data governance code heads, right? So everything when it comes to data, AI, and analytics governance, that's what we do. And in doing so, we're trying to help our customers and the market as a whole be mature, I would say, into turning data into an asset. I have a strong belief that this is the decade in which this will happen, that organizations will finally reach that maturity, partially because there's a lot of drivers in the market, security, but also regulatory. And then, of course, inevitably, AI is pulling hard on that data asset.
Great. Thank you. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, so I did come from an engineering background. I came from economics, also education. I've been quite passionate about using technology to solve social problems. That was how I got into data. My first account was trying to solve a problem of misinformation and disinformation using AI. And then I got into data science. So went from nonprofits and education into data science. And at some point in my career journey, I came back to data management, where I was primarily focused on data quality, but also a bit of data governance. And finally, I returned back to my first love, which is AI, but now coming from a governance side. So I currently work as an AI governance specialist with one of the leading automobile companies.
Okay. Great. Welcome to all of you. We're very excited to have you here. Just a quick recap of the topics for today. So the way I see it is data is a digital representation of the world around us. It's a pointer to the people, places, objects, things, and the interactions among these, like the events and the transactions and the activities, etc. So data includes its content, its characteristics, and its value to the world. So you can improve the data's content by managing its quality across the dimensions of accuracy, validity, currency, timeliness, reasonableness, etc. And that's called data quality management. And then you can document and enhance the characteristics of data, its definition, its description, ownership, structure, format, constraints, and that's called metadata management. And finally, you can increase the value for the organization by standardizing, enriching, integrating, and deduplicating it, and creating a unified record, which is euphemistically called the golden record. And that's master and reference data management. So the underlying theme of our questions today will be how best can we employ business and technical resources like people, processes, and technologies to improve data quality, document and leverage metadata, and create that trusted source of truth for master and reference data, leveraging various data management practices. Okay, let's proceed with the questions. So we'll throw out a few general questions which are open to across all of these domains and open to everyone. And the first one is going to be on emerging technology impact. So the question is, with the rise of machine learning, AI, and real-time analytics, how will data management practices such as MDM, metadata management, and DQM need to evolve in the coming years? Michael, would you like to start, please?
Yeah, definitely. Good question. AI is data hungry and a data monger. And so there's also that need for more data to build. Companies want to build AI system. On one side, they want to innovate, but on the other side, it's the regulatory side, which is creeping in fast, particularly the EU. And there's a number of requirements in the EU AI Act, which has started with the unacceptable risk, which is a no-go area for companies this last year. And then next year, we're going to be the full high risk expectation will be fully enforceable from August. So with all of this, having company wanting to innovate and the need to meet this requirement, data quality stand out clear, which I will be speaking about. One of the articles specifically highlight the need to have data quality and data management, but data quality as well as data governance in it. That's one of the requirements. Another requirement is the AI system does not discriminate due to biases as well as other testing. And all of these requirements, underpinning it is having a good data management, which is data quality practice, because going into the dimension you mentioned earlier around how data is measured in terms of completeness and other dimension you highlight, those dimensions eventually are quite key on what data the model is trained on. Having good data management, data quality practice would require that all of these things are in place. So in order for companies to meet the compliance requirements and in order for them to innovate and compete favorably, data governance and data quality is no longer what they do alone for trust, which should be the goal for most companies. Trust from the customer side, trust in the employee, improvement of processes, but also from the compliance, which come with a hefty fine. So that's a good driver. That means that there's a lot of demand on companies from next year, particularly, to begin to make sure they have the data right and involve putting the right data quality framework in place, policy standards, accountability, and training. So all of these, as well as aligning that with the business value, the strategy goals, and other business focus KPIs are quite key for businesses. And that's why they're setting the right foundation. That's why it's no longer something that you have to force yourself to get a seat in the table. There's already a space for you at the table if you're a data management professional, because that's the fine is coming and no company wants to be on the red book of regulation. So I'll stop there.
No, that's a great, well-rounded response to the question. And I would also say data quality, it's no longer about just like the data itself, the columns and row, but also the quality of the AI models themselves, with the features that the drift in the model, the bias in the model, and then also looking at the real-time streaming data, not only just static data, which comes at periodic basis, but now we have this continuous stream of data. So they have to change, enhance their data quality models as well, and frameworks to be able to take continuous streaming data as well. Great, thank you. Vice, how about you? From a master reference data management perspective, how these change impacted?
I would maybe look from two perspectives, from 2 points. One is a kind of shift from static data control towards more dynamic data intelligence. So I would say like this traditional rule-based governance is going to be more supported with AI help like this. So in the context, for example, for anomaly detection or pattern identification, automatized classification as well. So we can see, for example, ML that is used for some kind of identification of potential duplicates and so on. In our case, for example, we've been thinking how to implement AI in the business rules mining. If you have a couple of thousand business rules to be supported. So from that perspective, absolutely what also Michael said, I think it's a question of trust. we have to trust AI-derived decisions, or AI is supported. So we have to think about transparency. Regarding transparency, I think that from this point, explainability should be implemented in all steps of this flow, of this matrix, in order that we trust these AI-derived solutions or answers. No. The other point, it may be reflected, this involvement also from the data governance teams. So the teams that been working principally in the context of classic rule-based governance, data application, cleansing, cataloging data, and so on, towards more like data orchestration teams. No, they would have to work closely with ML engineers, ops, and so on, in order to better understand and have better visibility if you look from end-to-end processes that are AI support.
And I also add this with the rise of the data mesh and these product master data objects. I think that changes also like how we do traditional MDM to more like product and federated MDM to support things like AI and ML and automation, etc. How about from metadata management perspective, Tim? What would you think is the impact?
I think I see three impacts that this whole AI disruption is creating. One is automation in all the data management process itself. With this generative AI wave, some of the metadata can be generated, and some of the context can be generated. Human in the loop is important because somebody needs to sign off. Same thing for data quality, anomaly detection, for example. So I think this machine learning situation, this AI disruption that we're seeing, can give a lot of automation in the data management processes, all the way up to the analysis. I think the second thing is what the AI wave is doing. It's creating a lot of demand for data, period, right? So that's structured data, but it's also opened the floodgates of the majority of data being unstructured.
Yeah.
Whether that's text files, PDFs, video, whatever. It was hard to crack that nut before. And now with multimodal and whatnot, it becomes a lot more accessible. So all of a sudden, the volume of data that needs to be handled and managed somehow is a lot bigger than it was 2-3 years ago. And that's only going to get bigger. And I think the last thing this AI disruption is doing is it's creating new requirements for data management. If model governance or AI governance 2-3 years ago was tied to whatever the data scientists were able to get into production, that'll be order of magnitude 1, let's say. Today, everyone without any technical skills can put AI in production. So you're looking at 5 billion people that can all of a sudden put AI in production. So the order of magnitude of the new controls and the guardrails we need is a lot higher, at least 10 or 100 times higher. So I think that's what AI is doing. It's putting everything on its head. It's creating a lot more automation, creating a lot more demand and availability of data, and it's requiring us to update our data product practices, I would say.
Also like real-time observability, right? Because now this data is coming at like much bigger volume and much greater speed. So just like the static lineage and all, we need real-time observability tools to monitor where this data is landing and like how this data is being used, etc. as well. Great. Thank you. That was really insightful. So the next question is on business value and alignment. How do organizations best connect data management initiatives to measure business outcomes such as customer satisfaction, business growth, regulatory compliance, and operational efficiency? Stijn, would you like to continue?
Of course. And I think this is one of my pet peeve topics, because whether it's investments in new technologies for data or initiatives, a lot of investments in data and AI are often disconnected from that business value. Or maybe a business case is made to buy a new data platform, but then the connectivity to the business case is lost. So the way that we see this in the market already for a long time is that this is all use case driven, right? So are you doing a compliancy case for a specific compliancy? Are you making some process more efficient? Are you having an existing product or service and wrapping that with data somehow? Whatever it is, you need to engage with your business stakeholders through the lens of the use case that is important to them. Business stakeholder 1 department, what problems do you have in your part of the business to work? Which parts of those problems are originating from some sort of data challenge? And how can we solve that together? That's one use case. And then every team in the company will have its own use cases. My recommendation to the audience is always to follow MIT's data monetization framework. That really explains to you, based on 20-year research in multinationals, how you can actually monetize data and how you can set up those strategies.
So how would that directly impact to relate initiatives to business outcomes? Is that what the book covers, like data monetization, which you mentioned?
Exactly. It's telling you the steps, how you can continuously keep doing it.
Okay.
Because this is not something you do once. You build a data product that helps one use case. This is like a discipline. It's a method. This is something you have to be doing continuously because there's always new business value to be had.
Michael, what do you think about data quality management initiatives and how they should be aligned to get measurable business outcomes?
Yeah, so how I would view it is being able to have a cost in mind of whatever business outcome or business value you're trying to achieve, and also costing how much your data quality initiative would amount to, and how you can do that. I'm going to borrow just from someone, and it's more of looking into even your investment in tooling and costing the cost of storing data and keeping it in the right shape. I'll also double click on what Stan said on extending that to data products and the data marketplace, which is something that is organizations are investing. So looking at the cost of all of this and then looking at the value, you come up with a difference, which is your ROI. And it's usually good from an economic side to be able to have this costing. And this can be triggered by different business value, can come from a compliance side as well, which is obviously has a cost when you go on the wrong side of the law. So being able to have this costing would give you an overview, but I think it also helps you to prioritize, because prioritization helps you to deal with the problem in the base of order of importance, and you don't want to kill the elephant or boil the ocean at once. So you want to deal with issues to have quick wins, and also which would definitely increase adoption. Other benefits are tied to it. So that's my outlook to that, being able to demonstrate ROI, have a costing, and you can actually estimate this in terms of your investment in and what you expect to get, and then prioritize where you put your resource in terms of what it will cost you to achieve and get a quick win and demonstrate value.
Right. And master data management, of course, is like one of those, the that show ROI and business value the right way, because it's like
Yes.
running in the background. So Vice, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I'm happy, as Stan said, it's my favorite topic. Maybe I could start from one topic. One thing is what Malcolm put in his book now, Data Hero, is mindset. So we have to have a mindset shift, simply from seeing master data management or data governance as a cost to see it as a business enabler. No, so that's one thing. Second is really my favorite, because simply from my experience, from my project, from working in master data management and data governance, I had many times challenged from board, from senior management, also from my data community, data owners, and so on, how we can see the value. Where is the value? How we can demonstrate this value? So then after working in this topic and trying to find the best fit somehow, and also I started recently quite intensively communicating this framework that somehow I try to assemble. I call it APEM. And this is actually the same thing what Michael and Stan said. So I call this APEM. Basically, it's a framework that has a abbreviation of alignment, of prioritization, of empowerment, and the measurement. So what does it mean? Stan said we have to align all these data initiatives with a kind of strategic framework. So in this context, put it like a business strategy, business goals, global transformation project. We have to somehow align it. The second point, but also what Michael said, we have to make a prioritization. So not all initiatives are necessary to start right now. We can select those with the quick wins, with the highest ROE, and so on. The third point is empowerment. We have to have the people who will do this project, carry out this data initiative. And then the last point is a measure. So we have to define these key performance indicators, not only qualitative, but also quantitative. So this framework that I somehow assemble and try to somehow communicate, it's something that really should bring together data governance or master data management together with these measurable outcomes. So if you put it like that, basically data governance becomes a kind of business discussion. It's operational plan to show the value, to bring some measurable outcome to the community and to the company as well.
I also feel there's like accountability and ownership. The business needs to have equal ownership in these initiatives and show them value, so that once they do feel like, yes, they own it, there's much more buy-in and there's much more commitment to make these initiatives successful. Great points, everyone. Okay, moving on to the next question. This is about governance versus agility. So how can organizations balance the need for strong governance and controls with the demand for agility and rapid data use in business operations? Michael, would you like to start?
Yeah, definitely. I guess it depends on a number of factors. So balancing agility with speed. So basically speed and governance. I think to come from an approach where governance is not seen as a blocker, but as an enabler, and it's easier said than done. It's true. It's just trying to navigate without really stopping movement. The goal is not to stop or halt, and it comes with the language that is used to implement this governance. It comes with the approach. And basically, it starts with how you communicate this. Are you using one top, or you're coming from a very progressive yet showing the caution that needs to be put in place? So I think it comes with the communication of what the goal is. The reality is there's high need to really implement quickly because companies don't want to be left behind. So we can't kill the appetite from business because we're trying to govern. I think it's being able to have a sandbox approach, I would say, where you're able to give a kind of a lean deployment in a safe environment using all my language. What I'm trying to say is that can you just implement in a sandbox environment where it's controlled and you can see and manage the risk? And that would give opportunity for the business, the development team to be able to innovate and yet not hampering that innovation, but doing that in a safe way that wouldn't bring impact from a risk perspective as well as from negative impact to the user. I think that's the way it should be. The communication should be quite clear and not halting, not stopping, but enabling from that perspective, as well as testing the water with a sandbox approach would give leverage, but yet not at a high cost.
Yeah, non-invasive governance is the term that they use, which is where it's not impacted, like it's not this behemoth, which everybody's, oh my God, now we have to do governance. It's embedded in the work that you do. And then I like the idea of using a sandbox to test out your speedy business initiatives. And so they do not have a large scale impact on the governance and compliance and regulation that you already put in place in your organization. Thank you. Stijn, what are your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, as you can imagine. But I'll try to be succinct about them. And I'll start maybe with a little story of when we started our business 17 years ago. We were
Right.
mid-20s, very young and inexperienced in a way. And what happened is we were young, hungry wolves at that time. We didn't have time for governance. We didn't have time to do things the right way. We just needed to get things done. Now, what we did is we set up a good governance structure in the company immediately, whereby we had our bosses, the boards, take care of that corporate governance. And we wanted to go fast, and they provided some balance. They provided a mirror on our plans. So essentially, the combination of those two is what allowed us to be successful. So a lot of times people say that governance goes against speed and agility and whatnot, but that is just a false dichotomy. What happens is if you focus on only agility, you are having some governance in place. It's just the lowest form of governance where you're not taking into account any kind of risks or controls or whatnot. You're just moving ahead full speed and you don't even know if you're going in the right direction or if where you're going to end up is worth ending up in the first place because you're not stopping to question the direction or the destination. There's always governance. It's just that the way you do governance is actually what delivers you the agility while making sure that certain of the risks and opportunities are balanced out. In summary, governance is important. It does give the perception that it is something that slows things down, but it is actually something that is always present and that helps you increase your chances of success rather than the opposite.
Okay. So instead of slowing things down, by putting the proper governance levers in place, it'll actually help in speeding things up because you have backtracking and redoing things which are suffering because of proper governance and compliance not in place.
Let me give you a very simple example there. So let's say that I'm a data scientist, all gung-ho, I got my data platform, I got a lot of data, and I'm going to machine learn a perfect model. And I start working. 3 months later, I've got something that's ready, and I'm about to put it in production. Somebody from compliance is, oh, hold up a minute. Before we move this in production, let me do this basic check, right? Hey, are we using personal data? And then, oh, the answer is yes. I'm sorry to report, but your 3 months of work are invalid. You shouldn't have started this in the first place. But if you don't ask that simple question, which really doesn't take a lot of time, right? It's just that one collaboration point between one team member, the data scientist, and the other team member, maybe the governance person, or the data scientist following the company's policy. just that one question, which is a 5-minute job, that saves in this example 3 months of work that should never have happened in the first place.
Yeah, excellent point. Vice, would you like to add in?
Yeah, many thanks. From my perspective is also where we position in this vertical data governance, no? If we look from the DEMA definition, it's an exercise of authority and control over management of data asset we are putting on top. So from my perspective, having a kind of lightweight data governance checkpoints integrated practically directly in the workflow. Practically with these checkpoints, we are still ensured that we are compliant, but we can still fast move forward. So basically, it's just a positioning of data governance. But as Stan said, of course, it should be somewhere, and it should be data governance over in a certain level. But I would look from this perspective to putting this governance control as a lightweight checkpoints, as a checkpoints in the flow, and think about it as a kind of a minimum. If you think about agility and innovation, as Michael said, like minimum viable governance needed to ensure trust and compliance, but still be kind of accelerator that the things and innovation and the projects and what we are doing can follow.
Very cool. So the next question is on technology versus process. So to what extent are MDM, metadata management, DQM, technology problems versus people and process problems? Would you like to continue?
Absolutely. Yes, many things. If you look from the technology perspective, technology is enabler. Tool is simply enabler. And people and processes are accelerators, but also can be the blockers as well. So I always put people on the first place because this is the starting point. Many times I've been challenged or confronted the expression that we have wrong people in governance program and data management program. So I think that this is the way that we should not communicate at all. So I've been many times discussing about that. If we look from the people perspective, I think that the 3 points are quite important. It's a clarity, it's a capability, and it's a credibility. What I would like to say with this, clarity from data management team or leadership team should really clearly and transparently communicate with our data community and community in general what we are expecting, what are the expectations, and what will be done. The second point is capability. No, the people that are assigned, nominated for this role should really be able to do this job. If they are, for some any reason, they are not SMEs for this specific topic or this specific use case, we can do it by trainings, webinars, seminars, whatever. We could increase this level of literacy and knowledge, become really SME on this specific topic. And the last point that I also faced in my work is credibility. Credibility in the context that once people are nominated to be data domain owners, data domain stewards, they have to be simply authorized from their line managers, from managing directors or senior management, really to be empowered to do this job for this community. No? So to summarize, I would say always put the people and processes in front and then technology. So no practically tool, no technology can solve unclear ownership or undocumented processes.
I like what you said about technology being enablers and like people process being accelerators, or probably not. But clarity, capability, and credibility, those are 3 really great ways of like how people can enhance the value of these kind of initiatives. Michael, how about you? What do you think about technology versus people and process?
Yeah, I wouldn't see it as a trade-off, even though previous conversation has been a trade-off thing. But the way I view it is there's obviously a problem that needs to be solved. There's a process to solve that problem. I think it depends on what we mean by tooling. Obviously, everything that helps you to get a work done is tooling from basic physics. So there's always a tool that helps you to do jobs. So I think tooling and processes are interwoven in my view, because the tool helps you to make the process simpler and help the job get done, which solves the problem. There shouldn't be a trade-off, but there should be priority. There should be you wanting to solve the problem, having a clarity about the problem you want to solve, how you want to solve it, and then you know the right to solve it. Even if you have the most expensive tool for the wrong job, you're wasting resources because resources limited, as we know. So it's about being able to sit back and know what the problem you want to solve, how do you want to solve it, what's the best way to solve this problem. This could differ because every company have different values, different aims. I'm going to borrow this from someone who talks about taking it to first principle. Where are you going to? What's the outcome? What do you have to solve that problem? Then the organization will determine how you scope or contextualize this. They don't have to be a trade-off in my view, but it depends on some of the things I've highlighted. So I don't have to repeat myself again. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think to balance is not go too much on customizing your business processes for your business, because if your business processes are too customized, then you'll have to build this custom code to support this specific business process of yours. Generalizing your business process is also a good thing so that tools can scale and you don't have to build this custom code for solving your particular problem as such. So I think it's both have to rise to tools as well as the business processes. Stijn, how about you? What do you think?
As you can imagine, Devin, I do have an opinion here. And as a software vendor, perhaps I'm seen as a little bit biased, but that's okay. To the audience, keep in mind I have this bias. But I think that those three go in harmony: people,
Yeah.
process, and technology. We can only understand the process by being in it, right? You can only experience the river by being in the river, because it's a moving thing, it's a moving target. So the way that I would look at it is that you can't figure out your perfect people and process without knowing your technology, because technology has certain capabilities and limitations. So you can come up with a perfect model, but then it doesn't fit in the technology. So what I would recommend is rather an iterative approach, whereby at first use the basic tools, the WD-40 and the duct tape of the digital world, which is Excel, spreadsheets, and some collaborative tool like Slack or Teams. And then you sort of play test the first version of the process and the role and the responsibility using those basic tools. And very quickly, you'll learn then what are the limitations of the basic tools, and you'll get better insights into what the responsibility and the process could or should look like. And then take a serious tool like Libra is meant for certain process automation in data specifically. And the way that we've set that up is by providing the customer with a configurable operating model in the software. So they can always adjust that process to their current need, localized or globalized. And then it's the same iteration, right? Whatever tool you pick, you go with those people in that process and you set that up in the tool. You run it for a month, 3 months, whatever time period, and you iterate. Because by executing the process, you'll spot opportunities for improvement and so on and so forth. So I would always do the three at the same time, maybe with iterative complexity in process and tool.
Okay, excellent. Specifically for these three topics, I'm going to have like a rapid fire session. So for each one of you and the topics that you are experts in. So let's start with master data management. And this is about single source of truth. So what are the biggest challenges in achieving a single source of truth for master data across different business units and applications? Vice, how about you? Go ahead.
I could name quite a few. You're speaking about the challenges now. So I would maybe turn a bit around. I would like to maybe speak about the root causes of these challenges from this perspective, from my experience as well. So I would say the first one is semantic misalignment. What specific material, what specific item in a specific business context means. Because we can have the same material, the same item, but if we put it in a different business context, means something completely different. In one case could be, let's say, end material, in another context or in another division, the semi-finished material, another context could be simply part of service kit, no? So maybe not forcing too much absolute synchronization of, let's say, naming convention, but think about having harmonized definitions, what specific material means in a specific business context. So I think this is one root cause, one type of challenges to have this single source of truth. The second is more technical, like this, I would say. It's working towards harmonized data model between different systems. So also related to the attributes, specific attributes, global attributes should be managed globally, centrally, locally as well. And one of the biggest challenges or the root causes that I was facing working towards a single source of truth was organizational question. So there is still a big gap between ownership and, let's say, defining accountability and responsibility versus business processes and what business needs. So we've been trying all the time somehow to make this alignment. So if we look from this perspective, maybe we could not speak directly to having a, let's say, one system, a single source of truth, but thinking about, let's say, maybe the best version of truth, having this little bit more flexibility that still business is aligned and then the processes are documented, and then speak about, let's say, some kind of single source of truth, but within this context and having all these kind of root causes aligned and understood and dealt with.
Yeah, they talk about a single source of truth versus multiple versions of truth, whereby for every particular, there's a different version, but it all comes from the single source of truth. So metadata strategy. Should metadata management be treated as a standalone initiative or embedded with broader data governance and analytic programs? What are the benefits and drawbacks of each approach? Stijn, how about you?
Since you touch on the favorite topic of metadata, I'll go into it right away. But I do want to say one thing about the previous question.
Sure.
The single source of truth, I think that's an illusion. Who determines the single source of truth? The Ministry of Truth, right? Which we know very quickly becomes insidious. I think I'd rather like to think of it as a single source of trust, right? Where do you go to look which source you want to trust for the information you're looking for?
Yeah.
That's just my view, because truth searching is a process rather than a destination. And with respect to metadata, in large organizations for specific initiatives, often metadata management lead starts becoming its own initiative. And I think that's okay as long as it's transformative in the sense that you didn't care about metadata before and now you have to make a corrective action to a new way of working. I think
Yeah.
that's a fine approach to have metadata management be its own thing. Other than that, it should be part of the way of working. I'll give you the example. Whenever you're doing an ETL, you're making a new source to target pipeline, somebody's already documenting the mapping specification on the business requirements. That is metadata. It's just that the way that it's done right now, that documentation is quickly forgotten and lost. So then 3 years later, somebody has to recreate it, right? So if you make metadata management part of the work process, then you don't need to redo the work later. That's my view. And then the last advice is there, please, for the love of all that is holy in data and AI, never look at metadata as its own cause. It serves a purpose for something else, which is that business outcome we were talking about earlier. Thanks.
Great. And then finally, on data quality management, this is really about cultural adoption, Michael. How can leaders build a culture where business users take responsibility for data quality management rather than assuming that it's only an IT function?
Yeah, that's a good question. And my own experience doing this is if it's not a cultural thing, then it's probably not going to go anywhere. And what I mean is, particularly when you are a one-man team data quality experts, there are a number of things that are involved. And if you don't have money for tooling, so you're going to build dashboards, you're going to create the rules, you're going to profile the data, you're going to clean the data and all that. All of that, it's not going to be sustainable. There's a saying that says prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
And where that comes in is if the cost of training people and preventing the reoccurrence or recycling of issues that are preventable is quite cheaper than having to correct it. Obviously, at the time we're in, there's competitive advantage if you can deliver fast and a number of priority for business to deliver value. So you want to ensure that you're putting the right foundation. It might look like you're not doing anything, but eventually it is the culture that you've set that begins to bring value and begins to reduce the costs of having to redo something over and over again. Basically, my thoughts and suggestion would be that you take the painstaking way and invest in training and education, because with that, you're building a culture of trust within your colleagues, your team, or your organization, as well as that itself will now show in the way the approach towards treating data and creating data, and that eventually leads to value in a geometrical approach, unlike having to do that correctively.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's clear enough.
Oh, no, that's fine. Prevention is definitely better than later correction. And I like the fact that there's like ownership and pride in the data is also really important as culturally in an organization. The more you feel like you own the data and you have pride in the business KPIs that you generate from that, the better it is going to be. The quality of the data will improve as well. So questions on the chat. Thank you so much for these prepared questions. Let me see. Nicole, are there any you see that are interesting?
Yes, we got one. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. It's from Deepka Sethi. They ask, with DCAM2 suggesting to identify CDEs for extra governance, how do we make sure that this process is intrinsic in stakeholder roles and responsibilities rather than doing a reverse engineering when tech team reaches out?
I can pick on that one. Thanks,
Yes,
Nicole.
please.
So CDEs, that brings me back. We were fortunate at Colibra to see the birth of the chief data officer that came in the biggest banks in the early 2010s, 2012s. And the CDE, the critical data elements approach, was one of the methods discovered or applied to get this all kickstarted. And it boiled down to so much data. Where do we even begin establishing ownership? And then people said, how do you define which data is most important, most critical? For example, from regulatory purposes or business value purposes. So you would have a place to actually start. Now, this method still applies, right? If you have your start right now, you can still identify criticality metrics or criteria, which of your data domains or elements are critical, where you want to start establishing ownership. But really, if you want to do this and make it part of the normal practice, you have to work in your organization structure. Or you have to work with your HR teams to say which roles have to have those responsibilities related to data or data processes included in their competencies and included in their career paths. You have to include it in the process and the policies of the organization, which could be done with your data governance teams. You have to include it in the compliance function so you can reach out to those colleagues. And if you really want to use the strong stick, go talk to your audit teams because they're going to have ways to make sure that other people do these jobs. Otherwise, you run into security problems, for example. So work with your colleagues across the organization, compliance, audit, HR, to help clarify and establish those responsibilities.
Excellent point. I would like the panelists get a chance to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing, plugins, any products that they have, podcasts, and if they're introducing a new book, etc. Stijn, why don't we stay with you?
Thank you. I would like to promote more data learning, more data maturity. So if I want to bring it to Colibra, I think I have two things to promote. This is the year that Colibra moves from data governance to data and analytics and AI governance, or unified governance, as we call it. We're here at Big Data London. We just did a big launch of how to deal with governance in the unstructured data world. So happy to follow up on those topics for anyone.
Great. Thank you. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, just a quick one. You can always follow me on LinkedIn. I'm quite interested on a lot of research work around AI governance, but more on how to build a fair society, make sure that the models we're building them responsibly. So I have some papers that I've contributed to in the past, and that would be a good place to catch up with me. And then I sometimes talk on YouTube where I release content on some of the things I'm passionate about that have societal impacts. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. And Vice?
Yeah, thank you very much. As I mentioned a bit during this panel discussion, there are some transitions, of course, in my work. So, of course, now it's completely another story, but more like this framework that I set. So it's quite often now communicating is going to be communicated on LinkedIn about this open framework and everything to serve as a basis for future activities, of course, no? Simply to have it like a fast track to show the value of data governance and master data management and so on. This is one thing. The second thing, of course, I will continue publishing as well. Aside of LinkedIn publishing, there was one first guide and then book that really came from my experience, from failure to framework. Now it's more showing not only the root causes and reasons of a failure of data governance, but also put some in the context, okay, these are the root causes and these are the strategies how to overcome this. So this is going to be more or less the focus of my activities, most probably this year. Next year, going some new things, of course, and it will going to be communicated as well.
Great.
Thank you.
This has really been amazing. It's a big thank you to our panel today. We are leaving this roundtable a little bit wiser and a little bit better informed in this wide world of universe of data and data management. So thank you once again and have a wonderful day. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you very much.
panelists.